Good morning, everybody. I'm Storm Tracker meteorologist Jefferson Donovan. It is Friday. We are on the precipice of the weekend, a holiday weekend. I know so many folks maybe have an extra day off because of the President's Day holiday. It's also Valentine's Day weekend coming our way. So a lot of fun things coming up as we go into the weekend. And what I will say is that for this weekend, we are going to be faced with a mixed bag of weather. And then next week at this point is actually trending pretty active. So we're going to dive into quite a bit here on this YouTube live segment. I'm now going to turn the camera around so we can get into it. First and foremost, let's talk about what we are experiencing this morning, because there is some pretty dense fog in the forecast area that we are tracking, but it's not widespread. In Yakima, you can clearly see the lights, or excuse me, you can clearly see the city this morning, and that is because we are not seeing any of that obstructed view. However, in the Tri-Cities, it's a different story. We should be looking at the cable bridge with this camera angle, but instead it is just oh so foggy. A wall of gray out there, very dense fog in the Tri-Cities this morning, not so much in Yakima. And something else that you should be mindful of is that temperatures are below freezing. So if you come across an area of fog this morning, it is freezing fog. Here's a look at the current visibility, and you can just see that in the Tri-Cities, that visibility is not good with the very dense fog, but elsewhere it's really not too bad. What I will say is that as we go into the overnight hours tonight, or even as soon as this evening, we are going to see some precipitation across the forecast area, and that could make conditions tomorrow morning ripe for some fog, and we'll talk more about that here in a moment. But before we get there, here's a look at high temperatures coming today. It is going to be a mostly cloudy but generally calm Friday around the forecast area, and you can see those daytime highs into the mid-40s for the Tri-Cities today, mid-40s for the Yakima Valley, maybe a smidge cooler in the Kittitas Valley, and maybe a smidge warmer for the Blue Mountain foothills. But again, through this afternoon, we are going to be mostly calm and mostly cloudy. Now, as we take a look at the weekend, mentioned it several times, and it's in the description, that this weekend is going to have a mixed bag of weather. On Saturday, in the Tri-Cities, I'm kind of limited by the icons I have. There's going to be a slim chance of some showers on Saturday, but you should look for mostly cloudy skies. Skies will certainly be mostly cloudy for Yakima and Ellensburg, but we are going to be staying primarily calm and dry. And then for Walla Walla and Pendleton, the Blue Mountain foothills, we are definitely going to be looking at a chance of some precipitation. Sunday is going to be a pretty calm day of weather, and there might be some sun breaks out there. And then next week is trending rather active, as I've already mentioned as well. So let's just dive into the active weather portion of the program. Let's just look at the Storm Tracker Futurecast. As we go through today, I've mentioned it several times, pretty calm through this afternoon, but by this evening, we are going to see that precipitation entering our viewing area. Widespread precipitation this evening through the overnight hours, and we could be looking at some pretty heavy snow in the Cascades, and I'm not discounting some snow for the Blue Mountains either. Now, as we do head into Saturday, most of the region is going to be staying dry. I do anticipate dry weather conditions for the Kittitas and Yakima valleys on Saturday. Just a few isolated showers here and there in the Tri-Cities, but for the Blue Mountain foothills, we are going to be looking at precipitation throughout the day for Valentine's Day, and we can't rule out snowfall coming for the Blue Mountains either. Sunday is going to be primarily dry, but then as we go into Monday, here comes our next weather maker. The weather, or I should say the air mass in the upper atmosphere, is going to be very chilly during this time frame, so I'm not going to discount some snowflakes mixing in with rainfall for lower elevation areas. The Cascades certainly will be receiving a fair amount of snow, and even though it's not really showing on this map, I believe the Blue Mountains will be we'll be picking up a fair amount of snow as well. And as we go into Tuesday, a similar story, widespread precipitation across the area, not discounting some snowflakes mixed in with the rainfall for lower elevations, but I'm not anticipating much in the way of accumulation, if any accumulation, for lower elevations. The Cascades and the Blues, though, are going to be receiving a pretty healthy amount of snow. And for more on that, let's just look at the snow forecast map. First, we're going to stop this. This should be late Sunday night, but early Monday morning, 6 to 1, half dozen the other. I would anticipate 3 to 5 inches of snow over all of our Cascade and Blue Mountain passes as we do head through the weekend. Not a giant winter storm by any stretch of the imagination, but enough to make things slippery if you are going to be traveling for this President's Day weekend, for this Valentine's Day weekend. And then as we go through the early portions of next week, we're going to be receiving additional snowfall. I would say an additional 3 to 5 inches of snow for the Cascades and the Blues as we do go through Monday and Tuesday of next week. So again, some pretty heavy snow coming for the mountains and the Blue Mountains. or excuse me, for the Cascades and the Blue Mountains, beg your pardon. Something I do want to note with this map in particular, it does show that Ellensburg and Yakima will likely pick up accumulating snow. I'm highly skeptical of that. I don't believe Ellensburg and Yakima are going to be looking at too much, if any, in the way of snow accumulation. That's just a model resolution thing. But certainly for the mountains, the Cascades, and the Blues, we are going to be receiving some snowfall as we go through this week. And that is good because our snowpack is severely lacking. I'm now going to pull up a graph that I've shown a couple times on these YouTube lives, but I've blown it up. We're at near record low snowpack right now. Now, this is the snowpack as measured in SWE, snow water equivalent, so how much water is locked in our snowpack, and this is across the entirety of the Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. And the black line is where we currently are right now. The red line is the record low value, so you can see our snowpack is near record low values at this point. So even though we're not going to be looking at a major winter storm this weekend or early next week, any little bit does help. And what I would say is that I'm cautiously optimistic that as we get towards the middle to end of February, or I guess we're kind of already in the middle, as we get towards the late middle to end of February, it does look, models are highly suggestive that we could be looking at some pretty significant winter storms coming our way in terms of some of that mountain snowfall, which would be some good news. So again, this weekend and into early next week, I'll just go back to the map. This weekend and into early next week, we're going to be picking up a healthy amount of snow. I would say that between Friday and Tuesday, 6 to 12 inches of snow over all of our Cascade and Blue Mountain passes, certainly in the cards. And then, as I was just mentioning, more extended weather models do suggest that maybe a more significant helping of snow could be coming as we get towards maybe the later stages of next week and maybe the week after that. So again, that might help our snowpack out a bit, or would certainly help out our snowpack some. Not enough necessarily to dig us out of the snowpack deficit that we are currently in, but enough to certainly help. So that's going to kind of do it for this weather segment for this YouTube Live this time around. I'm going to turn the camera around so I can just talk to you folks directly. So again, we're not going to be looking at a significant storm system this weekend by any stretch of the imagination, but we are going to have some precipitation rolling in for this evening for everyone. Tomorrow, the Blue Mountains and adjacent foothills are going to hold on to precipitation as the rest of the region kind of dries out. Sunday is primarily going to be a pretty dry day, and the next week we are going to be looking at some widespread active weather possibilities. And again, not looking at much in the way of snow accumulation, or at least I don't anticipate much in the way of snow accumulation at this time for lower elevations, but the higher terrain might start picking up a pretty good amount of snow, which is great news because our snowpack really does need it. And then all eyes are really going to be towards the end of next week and maybe even into the week after that. As I've just already mentioned several times, that extended weather models are showing that we could see some significant mountain snow maybe coming during that time frame. So cross your fingers that happens, because we really do need to build up that snowpack a bit. But right now, I'm going to wish you all a very happy weekend coming your way. A quick note, I typically like to do these on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I do not believe I will be doing one on President's Day Monday. I do have some other obligations. I'll be working, but I'll have some other obligations to take care of. So I don't believe I will do one of these on Monday. If it warrants it, I will do a special one of these potentially on Tuesday, but right now it does look like I won't do another one of these until next Wednesday. So again, maybe next Wednesday I'll do another one of these YouTube Lives, but right now I just hope all of you have a tremendous weekend. So you can get a beautiful look out at the very foggy Tri-Cities, just that wall of gray there, and everybody take care.